I didn't eat anything. matter of fact, I look better just using those two compounds. I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Can you please explain the role of the hormone leptin, how it's affected by the ketogenic diet?
You know, leptin was discovered not too long ago, believe it or not. It's the what they call the appetite hormone. So when you eat a meal, your brain releases leptin, and the leptin then tells your body you're not hungry anymore. Problem is, the people who have the most leptin are the most overweight, which doesn't make sense, right? Why would very fat people have very high leptin levels in their body? Because you would think leptin would turn their appetite off. The problem with people who have this leptin issue is that they have a bad leptin receptivity, meaning that their receptors for leptin are either non-existent or they're not sensitive, and leptin's not binding to the receptors, shutting off their appetite. So their body keeps producing more and more leptin, thinking there's not enough around, but when in fact the receptors are just not good. In fact, and this happens no matter what the diet you're following is. So if you're hungry or if you haven't eaten for a while, your body releases leptin. Leptin sensitivity has nothing really to do with whether you're on a high carb or low carb diet. But there are things that do influence leptin. Obviously, genetics play a big role. That's why people who tend to be overweight genetically, it runs in their family, tend to have poor leptin sensitivity. I make a product called Lipolyze, which is our non-stimulant-based fat burner that has an ingredient in there called African mango, and it is a really good leptin sensitizer. That's one of the ways it burns fat. It actually makes your body more sensitive, the receptors more receptive to leptin, thus, lowering your hunger. So obviously there are other methodologies of limiting hunger that are not related to leptin, like the new fat loss drugs that are on the market, like Ozempic and Mounjaro. They're basically slowing motility of food through your intestinal tract, thus making you feel full longer. But that has nothing to do with leptin. So it's a separate issue of how to control appetite. But like I said, a lot of people have leptin sensitivity issues. This supplement that I sell, Lipolyze, happens to be really good at that. And that's why a lot of people really get good results from it. Plus, there's no stimulants in it, so it's not going to raise your blood pressure. It's not going to cause anxiety for people who have problems. It's not going to affect your sleep. So good product, good question.
Another good question here, because this is something you're starting to see a lot more of in different uses. And the question is about IV vitamin electrolyte treatments. Question is specific to, do you recommend having that done post-contest? And if so, how soon?
I never restrict my vitamin intake or anything like that, at any point in the year. The only time I ever stop taking my vitamins is if I need surgery, unfortunately, which I've had way too many of this past 12 months. But no, because before surgery, you don't want to take nutritional supplements because they can increase bleeding time. But aside from that, I never stop. So post-contest, I'm not nutrient, deprived. Now, post-contest, I might be electrolyte deprived. That's a different story. Some guys like to do electrolyte infusions. You know, my feeling is that, you know, post contest, unless you're really overly dehydrated where you're actually feeling terrible because of it, I wouldn't be infusing IV bags of sodium into your body because you're going to really blow up and get very, very uncomfortably bloated. So you're better off introducing liquids back, you know, at a moderate pace. And I always tell people, if you gain more than 10 or 15 pounds, you know, post contest, within those couple days, week or two before, take a diuretic. Don't let your body retain all that fluid. If you were in the hospital and you were retaining that fluid, they'd give you IV Lasix to knock that out. Believe me, I did it when they did it to me when I had my heart surgery. It's not good to retain 15, 20 pounds of water weight. Even though you might look big and huge and feel like strong in the gym, that's a big strain on your heart. So you don't want to do that.
Best remedies for hair loss without prescription drugs.
I feel like sometimes guilty for pushing my own products, but I have really good products. And a lot of people have found really good success with taking Testosterone for hair thinning or hair loss for that matter, because most hair loss, especially in men and women for that matter, are due to high DHT or dihydrotestosterone levels. Now, it's interesting because when you're younger, DHT makes your hair grow more. Then as you get older, it'll make it fall out and thin. That's what, and men have obviously higher DHT levels because DHT is produced from testosterone. So even though women do produce DHT, men produce a lot more. That's why most women don't lose their hair. But the women do get hair thinning as they get older, especially as they approach menopause. So the key is to block DHT production, but not completely annihilate it. Because if you get rid of too much of it, it affects your sex drive, affects your ability to build muscle. So you kind of just want to get it into normal range. So 3 pills twice a day of Testosterone will help do that. And obviously, it's not a prescription. It uses we have a very, very high purity potency form of saw palmetto. You can't just go buy it in any store. I had to source the stuff, and it works really well. But it doesn't lower your DHT too much, and that's why people get good results. I know Chris Aceto loves it because Chris is obsessed with his hair. And he's got a very good head of hair at that. And he was thinning, and he started taking it, and it really helped a lot. I know a lot of women, too, that it's really helped tremendously. That's the main culprit. Now, there are other reasons why people get like these alopecias and stuff like that. But for the most part, male pattern baldness, hair thinning as we get older from taking anabolics is usually due to high DHT levels. So try that out.
A show day question. Do you take your pills with a sip of water, or do you not take because you don't want to drink water that day?
Yeah, I don't usually recommend doing vitamins the day of the show. If you're going to do, like, if you're taking like clenbuterol and T3 and some Arimidex or something like that, those are small pills. I usually just take those with a sip of water. But I wouldn't be taking, like, you know, all the vitamins and essential fatty acids because you're just not drinking enough to really flush those down. And to be quite frank, one day of missing them is going to do nothing. There's no reason. And a lot of people, if you don't drink enough fluid with vitamins, a lot of people get indigestion and their stomach hurts. So don't try to jam your vitamins down. Likewise, I usually have people use the Fiberlyze product 3 times the day before the show because you're not going to be able to use Fiberlyze the day of the show because you're not drinking. Usually what I do is if it's a Saturday show, Saturday night before bed, once you start eating and drinking, and I do a Fiberlyze shake before bed just to make sure I can go to the bathroom in the morning. But before that, I wouldn't do any vitamins, while you're not drinking.
Theophilos, I have high TSH, low T3, and high T4. Doctor said my T4 doesn't convert to T3, and he suggested exogenous T4 supplementation. That doesn't make sense to me since I don't convert that to T3. Should I supplement with exogenous T3 or T4?
Give me the beginning again. I want to just hear what he's low and high.
Yeah, sure. Again. So he says he has high TSH, low T3, and high T4. And then the doctor made a recommendation, or rather said that his T4 doesn't convert to T3 and suggested exogenous T4 supplementation.
Yeah, it sounds kind of ridiculous to me too. If your T4 is high normal and your T3 is low and TSH is high, when thyroid stimulating hormone is high, it's basically your body telling itself, we don't have enough active T3. We don't have enough of the active thyroid hormone. So he's not converting T4 to T3. Taking more T4 is not going to solve the problem because he's not converting it, like he said. So really what he needs to do is probably take either Cytomel, which is direct T3, or he could take, sometimes a lot of people do the Armor Thyroid, which contains a little T4 and T3. Personally, I would rather just take T3 because it's a little more precise. But the question is, why isn't he converting T4 to T3? That's the question. And maybe an endocrinologist would be the person to consult first. And, it's sometimes, also, I think, and this is probably the thinking process that his doctor has, sometimes people can't convert their own T4 to T3, but then they take an exogenous source of it and it converts. So maybe the doctor wants to try that first. The thing that sucks is that he has low T3 right now. So he's probably having, side effects of that. And a lot of times you want to fix it instantaneously. The best way to fix it is to take T3, but it might not hurt to try the T4 for a week or so, get some blood draws. And if it's not raising his T3 up, then go right to the T3.
Off-season cycle, did you like using 2 or 3 total compounds to test being the base, or if the milligrams are equal, does it not matter?
I personally liked doing in the off-season two compounds. So I would use testosterone with an anabolic, and I would try to switch it every 6 to 8 weeks, the anabolic, that is. And that seemed to work well. Every once in a while, I would try to throw some orals in. I never really did well on orals, like I told you, because it always killed my appetite, so I didn't use them. But, once in a while, I would throw some Dianabol tabs in there to kind of, boost me up a little bit. Obviously, I was taking growth hormone with the 2 anabolics as well. And a lot of times insulin in the off season because I couldn't absorb my food properly. So that worked well for me. And then pre-contest, I would go to usually 3 compounds. And sometimes at the very end, I would go to 4. So like at pre-contest, I would do like maybe testosterone, trenbolone, acetate, Winstrol. There really wasn't that much Masteron when I was competing. So guys didn't use really Masteron, but we would use like Helotest in the last 2 weeks. Sometimes I would use Primobolan when it was available. But to me, testosterone, the last 5 years of my career, all I used was testosterone and trenbolone for contest prep along with GH. That was it. I didn't need anything. matter of fact, I looked better just using those 2 compounds. And I used to say as a joke when I was in the middle of my career, I used to say, you know what? I really believe that you can use testosterone, trenbolone, and GH and probably look the absolute best you can and never having used another compound. So what I would do is off season, I would just use testosterone and equipoise. And then for the contest prep, I would just use testosterone and trenbolone acetate. And unfortunately, the trenbolone acetate keeps you up. It makes it hard to sleep at night. But I would do that for like 12 weeks, and that was it. It was super simple. And I think I looked better because of it, because I didn't have as many drugs in my system, but I had the ones that actually really make the biggest difference in your physique. And so you might want to try that. I got really good results with that. I was very happy with how I looked those last couple of years. And remember, I had shoulder issues. So I really couldn't train the way I needed to. I was kind of faking my way through it. But physique-wise, my physique looked the best it had my entire career.